Again, I always make a lot of jokes about landing on boats. Something I just don't want to do. It sounds terrible, but
It's the
I
most
can
exciting thing you
envision.
can do with your clothes on, man.
I don't know. You and I might have different. We'll agree to disagree. I had my buddy Feed on here talking about landing, in a thunderstorm on the boat with no gas, the rolling pitching deck. I'm just like that sounds absolutely terrifying to me. Um, but as the Air Wing commander, to never having been that, nor will I be, but I can envision. Yeah, you understand air warfare and how that goes. When you become the strike group commander, you're mixing a little bit more boat life into it and moving that around. When you mentioned like a submarine, I'm assuming that's like an attack a submarine that is there for protection and defense of the strike group, depending on how that moves around. But I mean, that's something as a pilot, you probably never thought about as an O3 or an O4, what this guy is doing out here floating around and how that plays into the moving
Yeah.
base, Shaw Air Force Base, a fighter base, probably 5,000 people or
Yeah,
so,
well,
fixed
that
runway.
one
This
of
is
the
the same thing.
illustrations, at the very beginning of the anti-ISIS campaign, we CENTCOM are working on getting the overflight and base access in the region to carry ordnance and to drop it into an Arab neighbor's nation, and so the only people who could drop ordnance at the beginning of that were the guys on the carrier, because there was no permission slip that was needed. There's an American flag that flies on. It was the George H.W. Bush, as it turns out, that's conducting out. And so for the first, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 weeks, the only ordnance that's being released was coming from Navy airplanes, just based on the overflight and base access issue, and being able to load ordnance and then take it someplace else. So carriers, they're not the end all be all, but they're a facilitator. Back in the 90s, when the whole thing in the Balkans was heating up, the Italians were not real shot in the arm about using Vicenza as a place to fly out of for NATO and for the U.S. Air Force. And so it's like, okay, well, we're going to just do this with aircraft carriers then. And it's like, oh, okay, well, if you're going to do it anyway, you might as well go ahead and fly out of Vicenza. So I mean, there's some synergies that come along with. It's not just one, it's not just the other, but it's the combination of the two that create that capability.
Yeah, power
So
projection.
anyway, I finished the Fifth Fleet tour. Was fascinating. It was really Jim Mattis was my boss. I'm a Mattis trained man. I met Mattis for the first time in Ramadi. There was a shake fest out there. More of this stuff that we were trying to do in terms of establishing a rapport with the Sunnis and kind of turning the sheikhs away from the Al-Qaeda side and bringing them back to to working with us. But so I'd met Mattis first in Ramadi when he was the 3-star Marine out there in charge of what was going on in Western Iraq. And then he wound up being my boss. He was CENTCOM when I was Fifth Fleet. Petraeus was originally going to be CENTCOM. And well, in fact, he was CENTCOM. But then McCraven, there was a derogatory article in Rolling Stone about McCraven. McCraven got fired. Petraeus, this was the summer of 2010.
Because was McCraven's article about Obama?
Yeah. Or the
That's what I
administration,
was like, because
about,
that very critical about the Obama administration. And that,
he was
automatic.
relieved. And then so Petraeus was CENTCOM. He had been the 4-star in Iraq, and then he went to be CENTCOM. And then this was sort of a demotion, or at least a lateral 4-star thing, where he now took over in Afghanistan. And Mattis had originally, he was going to retire. He was at the Joint Forces Command, and Mattis didn't have any place to go. Suddenly, Petraeus goes to Afghanistan, and Mattis then becomes CENTCOM. So some big dominoes that were falling at that time. Then anyway, came back to the Navy staff for a year as the N3 and 5, and then finished out the Navy journey there in Tampa as the deputy at CENTCOM.
Quite
It was
quite
it
a
was a great
journey.
ride. I'd go back and do it all again. I'd be a little smarter the second time.